A lot of people talk about motorsports being the worst financial decision of their life or any kind of, other bad sort of thing. However, for me, getting involved in motorsports helped save my life. It took over everything completely. My hobbies, my friends, my career, my occupation, everything. Hi, my name is Devin. And I have a problem where I collect old Toyotas like this, and I fix them, I race them, I drift them, and I destroy them. These cars and what they do for me is a therapy of sorts. I've had what a lot of people would consider depression and anxiety for probably about 15 years. It's something that I usually don't care to talk about. However, what I've wanted to talk about for a while is the effect that motorsports has had on my mental health. Although I think I've had depression and anxiety for about 15 years, I didn't really know exactly what it was until about 10 years ago. I met with a psychologist who gave me a 30-minute diagnosis that told me that I probably have low endorphin levels, whether that was serotonin or dopamine. I don't really remember. It was a long time ago. They wrote me a prescription and sent me on my way and said, give me a call if you feel better. I didn't really think 30 minutes was enough time for them to get to know me, to know exactly what was going on. So I talked to someone that I trusted, a medical professional, and they looked at the prescription and said, that's for an antidepressant and you don't need that. Whether they're right or wrong, I'm not really sure because I didn't ever get the prescription filled. But this at least gave me some sort of direction as to know what was going on with me. Maybe I had a serotonin or dopamine problem, and maybe that's what I needed to go after, was I needed to address those levels being low. And I subconsciously started seeking out these kinds of activities and things that help me boost these endorphins. Now, not everybody who has a mental health problem is able to solve or treat their mental health without medications. And honestly, I might have been a lot better off if I would have taken that prescription. However, I'm doing all right now. When I was at my lowest point is when I started building my very first AE86, which is still my current drift car. Ever since then, I've been using motorsports to help treat my mental health. I can break up drifting or cars or motorsports, however you want to look at it, into 3 different categories that help me with my mental health. The first being fixing or building, or however you want to put it. So fixing or building, we'll go with that. The second being driving, not racing or drifting, just driving cars. And the third is motorsports, or participating in motorsports, racing or drifting. And for me, my particular form of motorsport that's my favorite is drifting. Each of these different things helps me with mental health in different ways. So I'll break them down individually and talk about them one-on-one. So the first one, building or fixing. This is what helps me deal with depression. When I'm feeling hopeless, when I'm feeling like I can't fix what's going wrong in my life, I can at least go out in the garage, turn some wrenches, and fix one of these old cars. I don't necessarily need to have the satisfaction of completely fixing something, but something just as small as I took this apart, or I put this back together, I changed the brake pads, I took this bolt off, I put this bolt back on. Just these little things, these goals, these senses of accomplishment help motivate me and help keep me going when I'm feeling low. When I can't fix anything that's going wrong in my life, I know at least I can fix something on an old car. While I'm doing something constructive, it helps me to work out what's going on in my mind. So if I'm doing something with my hands, keeping my hands and my brain occupied, I can usually find the way out of the darkness that's in my head. All right, the next one, driving. Now, driving is what I use to help me with anxiety. I specifically don't go for drives for depression because if you're driving, you may end up driving aggressively, and when you're depressed, that may lead to poor decisions. So for me, when I go for a drive, it's sort of like a meditation, right? I'm not focusing so intently that I can't think. It's more of a soothing, I'm focused on the next turn, I'm focused on the next curve, I'm focused on the next uphill, the next downhill, just little snippets along the way. And it doesn't matter where I'm going, just that I'm going somewhere. I prefer kind of curvy canyon roads for this. I used to live in Utah, so there were tons of canyon roads, and it was wonderful because when I was anxious and my brain was all twisted in knots with all these things that were stressing me out that I just had to figure out, that were just bothering me, I could go for a drive. I can have this road meditation of just following the road wherever it's going, taking these turns, taking that, going uphill, going downhill. And while I was doing that, I could work out all of these knots that were in my head. And I could start thinking clearly again. I'm not trying to drive fast when I'm doing this. Like I said, I'm just trying to go somewhere. And this helps put my buzzing brain at ease. All right, let's talk about drifting. This one is my favorite. Obviously because, I get the most satisfaction out of it, but it also treats both anxiety and depression for me. I still remember my very first drift event. I had a bunch of negative energy at this time, It was still around that same time when I was very low, but I remember sitting there on the start line, waiting for that flag to drop. I just had my hands on my steering wheel. I was just kind of focused on the course in front of me, and I had so much anxiety and depression that was built up in my brain that I just couldn't release. I couldn't figure out how to let it go. And as I was sitting there at the start line, and the flag dropped and I was on track, just that moment, it was just me and my machine. All this negative energy, everything was gone. I didn't have all of this confliction in my mind and in my soul. I could focus and I could feel enjoyment and happiness for the first time in years. It was absolutely incredible. It was life-changing. With everything that had been going on in my life, at this point, this probably would have been about 5 or 6 years of depression and about a year or two of absolutely crippling depression and anxiety. I finally had some type of release, and it felt so amazing. The depression, the anger, the fear, the sadness, all of that was finally quiet, and I could think clearly. By the way, I was absolutely terrible at drifting when I first started. The first time I tried to initiate a drift, well, I just understeered and just didn't go anywhere. And then I tried to clutch kick or whatever and try to get it back out, and then I spun. I was absolutely garbage, but I was just sitting there just happy as could be, just having a great time spinning out in my old Toyota, and it was amazing. Drifting is different than other forms of motorsports in the sense that it's not timed. You're not trying to be out there to beat somebody. You're not trying to out-compete against anybody else. Drifting really is more about just fun. I mean, you're sliding a car around, you're not timed, you don't have to go super fast, you're not trying to pass other people, you're not trying to compete with anybody, at least not at a grassroots level. So you're just out there just to have a good time, and that's all that matters. When I first got into drifting, I didn't have the money to fix my car all the time, and most of the time it was completely and totally broken. I was in college, so I didn't have a whole lot of money, but what I did do was I volunteered at as many drift events as I could because I still wanted to get out there. I knew that feeling. I knew that that's where I wanted to be. I knew that I was getting that serotonin and dopamine boosts, those endorphin boosts that I needed. When I first started drifting, at the very, very beginning, this was my true lowest point. When I look back on my mental health, and I look back on how I was, how I coped with things, and where I was at, and that's when I was at the absolute rock bottom, when I was ready to make choices that could have ended my life. I had a hard time sleeping because of anxiety, and the depression gave me nightmares and made things so much worse. So I couldn't sleep because my brain was buzzing. When I finally did fall asleep, I would wake from these nightmares that were based on reality, and I would relive the worst moments that I had felt. And so not having the money to fix my car and having all of this going on in my head, it was terrible. It was hard for me to find the motivation to even work on my car. So that's where I found those little bits of satisfaction of just loosening this bolt, or tightening this bolt, doing one little thing at a time. But what I found with drifting, and the best thing about it, in my opinion, is the community. The drift community is so positive and so supportive. a lot of the local drifters, this is when I was out in Utah, they knew me because I ran the start line, right? And I was so excited to finally get out in my car. And so I remember this, I was working really hard to get my car out there, and this probably would have been my second drift day. I've been working hard on it all off season, and the start of the season I was working on it, and I was really excited. I was about to sign up for it, and I realized I didn't have one part for my car. And I posted on the Drift Utah Facebook group and said, I'm not gonna be able to drift this weekend, however, I'm gonna come out and run the start line. And the support I got was so incredible. People I had never met before messaged me saying, hey, what part do you need? My car's not running right now. Let me pull it off of my car and you can use it for this weekend, And it was just so incredible, this type of, people coming together to help me when they didn't know what was going on in my life. Not only was there positivity at drift events where people were always saying, hey, how's it going, and just super happy, but they also invited me to things outside of drift events. I made some incredible friends. I have lifelong friends and mentors I've made through drifting that started way back when I was just helping volunteer at events. And even though I didn't have the money to always have my car going, drifting gave my life purpose when I had a hard time finding any. I volunteered at every single event I could, and I drifted at every event I could afford, even when my engine was on its last legs, which twice. I've blown 2 motors when I was drifting. So it was, and at the end of the day, all smiles. I knew I just absolutely obliterated the engine that I couldn't afford to fix. But at the end of the day, driving home, I just had nothing but a big smile. After I started to put things together and realized that drifting was so incredibly beneficial for my mental health, man, there's no looking back. I have been into drifting up to my eyeballs ever since then, and that was, let's see, that had to have been almost 8 years ago, 9 years ago. It was really close, it's been a long time. I found other ways to help boost those amazing feelings I get, the boost to my mental health, the endorphin rush I get that's why I have so many GoPros. I've got like 6 GoPros, and I've got footage dating way back to like my second year of drifting. So what I do is I take footage and video of not only, my car and whatever, but also from my helmet, because I can go back and relive that moment, and I can get a little bit more of that endorphin rush from it, and it extends that feeling that I need. It extends that happiness, that joy, the endorphins help me to cope with the mental health and the problems that I'm dealing with. This usually ties me over until I can get to another drift event. I'm doing a lot better now. I haven't come close to that low point ever since then. Everything has been pretty positive since I got started with drifting, and it's been a long time. I can't attribute it entirely to drifting. I have a great relationship with friends and with family that I didn't used to have. I have an amazing wife who is so incredibly supportive of me. Drifting now, I'm a part of the drift organization, MB Drift, and so I spend so much time setting up these events and helping run these events and interacting with sponsors and vendors and the racetrack and trying to get all logistics sorted out. And so I spend so much time doing all this, and my wife helps and she encourages because she knows that drifting is what I need. And the drift community gave so much to me that I try and give back every bit that I can. I don't get as much seat time as I used to, but that's okay, because I get to a drift event and I see my drift family, I see the drift community, I see new people coming in. One of my favorite things is to be able to give ride-alongs to people who've never experienced drifting, because I say, hey, have you ever been drifting? Nope. This is your first time? Awesome. Have you ever been out to a drift event? When they say no, I'm like, all right, great. Let's show you this sport that I love so much, and let me help you get addicted to this, right? But aside from my family and my spouse and my friends, I've got drifting, and for me, I also found a religious or spiritual aspect that also helps me a lot with mental health. I also have a great career. My passion for motorsports has also led to my career path, and I work for an OEM now, and it's great. I have, the sky is the limit with my career. I'm not stuck at a certain level. There's no ceiling, but drifting is a huge part of it. It's my anti-anxiety, it's my antidepressant, it's my drug. It really is what helps me get by. And because drifting has meant so much to me, that's why I'm so passionate about the drift community and doing everything that I can. And I know not everybody sees me that way because I'm only human. You know, sometimes I say things I don't, exactly mean, or I don't express things right, or I know that I upset some people, and it's never my intention. Because I love the drift community and I love drifting, and I always want it to be all positive, Drifting is all about having fun. That's all I really care about. I want to make sure everybody's having fun. If you're struggling with mental health, I urge you to see a medical professional, talk to somebody, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and find what helps you. For me, that's motorsports. For me, that's cars. For me, that's drifting. But find what helps you. Find what passion you have, or what hobby gives you that endorphin release that you need to help elevate you and help you bring you out of the slumps and out of the darkness, and find that happiness and joy that you've been struggling to find. And feel that positivity that is so elusive when you're struggling with mental health.